Hey everybody, welcome to Ron's Computer Videos. Kind of what I wanted to talk about today is part of my Macintosh collection that I've been building maybe the longest of anything. And it comes down to me that it has kind of occurred to me that maybe not everybody has seen some of these things or doesn't maybe necessarily own them. And it's taken me a while to kind of collect these up, but what I wanted to talk about today are ADB devices. And keyboards, mice, controllers, things like that. Just neat stuff that I've picked up over the years for my collection. So I thought maybe we'll just do that. Now, as everybody is probably aware, the ADB connection, or the Apple Desktop Bus, replaced the sort of strange interfaces that Apple used on the 128K through Mac Plus that had a separate it is not a phone connection. It's actually kind of smaller. It has the phone connection for the keyboard, and then has a DB9 connection for the mouse. Now that was maybe kind of a smart idea, because the mouse, I guess, for the Apple IIc and for the 2E, the mouse card that came out for the 2E, uses, my understanding is it uses the exact same mouse. So Apple was just sort of using technology and stuff they already had on hand to kind of address that. And that's fine, but I want to talk about ADB today. And so let me show you some of the neat things in my collection. All right, let's go ahead and start where it all started. And that is with the Apple Desktop Bus keyboard. This is the original keyboard. Oh, it's kind of dusty now that I'm looking at it. But this is the keyboard that would have originally shipped with the Apple IIgs. And it's a little bit different than a lot of the keyboards that came later. Of course, it's still got the standard 2 ADB ports on it. But it has a really strange sort of feel. It's got Alps caps. I think that they're Alps orange or Alps salmon, I guess, depending on where you're from. But the keyboard itself, it's always had like a really great feel to it. I've typed so many papers on these when my folks had an Apple IIgs. It is a little strange though, just because you kind of think about the spacing on modern keyboards, and it does have a bit of a incline to it, but maybe not as much as some of the later keyboards that Apple designed. I know that people sometimes kind of think that it's a flex to have these old ADB keyboards, especially like for the 2GS if you don't own a 2GS. But I just love this keyboard. There's lots of times that I'll just pull this out and use this one just because it's so small and space saving. Alright, the next one up for this evening is the Apple keyboard, which is kind of an uninspiring name for this keyboard. I actually did a retrobrite on this one in a video maybe, I think last year or something. Really clean this up. Maybe this isn't what I retrobrited, but I did retrobrite this because this keyboard was really kind of grimy looking, and it has sort of the same Alps switch feel. I don't know. You can go out to Desk Authority just like I can and look up the switches that are used on the keyboards, but I really like this one too. Things feel a little bit more spread out. Unlike the Apple Desktop or the original Apple Desktop keyboard, it does have a little bit more of an incline in the back. It types a little easier. So I never owned one of these back in the day. That Apple Desktop Bus keyboard probably would have came out like in '86 or something. I guess like whatever year the 2GS came out. This was introduced later. This was introduced, like probably sometime between maybe 1988 and 1990, because this would have been the keyboard that you would have purchased if you had bought a Mac SE or like a Mac II. this design, they kind of carried over some things, because you have to think about the design language at the time, the Snow White design language. So it kind of mirrors some things that you would have seen on the 2GS. Like the 2GS has the cap lock key down in the corner, same as this one does. And that was a little different than maybe something you would see on a PC keyboard at the time. I do like the incline. I do think it's a little more gradual. You do have the 2 ADB ports, just like you do on all other keyboards of this era. But unlike the 2GS keyboard, this actually also includes a safety lock, so that way if you were going to put this in a computer lab or something like that, maybe it wouldn't run off so easy. So I do like this one. This one is a really nice one, and if you're putting together like an SE machine or something like that, this is the one you want. Introduced right about that same time is the Apple Extended Keyboard. Now, this keyboard's a little grungy, because this is something that I just got in on a trade. You can also see some discoloring where the little notes would be here, like, oh, copy paste, and you know, and all those type of things, like keyboard reminders and stuff. If you remember that back in the days of using WordPerfect, where you had all of your stuff written on there for your macros and stuff like that. But this is actually an Extended Keyboard 2. I'm still looking for a Extended Keyboard 1, but this was the first time that you would have gotten a extended keyboard on a Macintosh that had more of that feel and style like a PC equivalent keyboard. The kind of the neat thing about this is that the arrow keys and stuff like that feel really good. If you look back on the Apple keyboard, it very much kind of borrows the design from the 2GS, where you had arrow keys that were just underneath the keyboard. So this is okay for some applications and things like that. If you're just moving around in the spreadsheet, it's okay. But you don't have to tell anybody just how nice it is to just have that standard T pattern. So as you see, kind of as it evolved, just as a space savings, you have the keys, the arrow keys down here in the corner, and then we evolve, and now we have a regular T pattern here. The Extended Keyboard is nice because, again, it was the first one with function keys that kind of more mirrored what PC keyboards had at the time. The Extended Keyboard 2 is a little bit smaller than the Extended Keyboard, and I'll see maybe if I can throw a graphic or something up to better explain, or actually maybe even better than that. I think Low End Mac has a cool article that kind of tells the difference between these two keyboards. This one also has 2 ADB ports for, you know, a pass-through of your keyboard mouse, but this also has, I'm not sure how great this is going to go. Oh man, it's a little stuck. But it has, oh yeah, because it's a rubberized thing. But there is a lift here on the back where you could adjust the height of the keyboard, kind of pitch things forward a little bit based on what your typing style was. So really like this one. It's very cool. It's especially handy maybe if you have a Orange PC DOS card or something in your Mac 2, or if you were using any of like the PC emulators and things like that. You can get access to the function keys without having to hit like a modifier and then hit like a number key. So really like this one. As time marches on, everyone looks for ways to save money, and that would have been exactly what happened with the Apple Desktop Keyboard 2. Or this might actually, I'm sorry, I think it's actually just called, yeah, Apple Keyboard 2. This one right here is maybe a little bit of an older, or I'm sorry, a later one in the product line, because you're going to see that it has a like an ISO style enter key instead of an L-shaped enter key. And again, this is all about just trying to save space on the desktop by condensing things. I had one of these. It's not great. It's not great. I used one of these for a very long time back in the day with my Quadra 610, and I was kind of cramped on my desk and stuff, and it led to a lot of like hand strain. I remember this keyboard. And then years later, when I went to go work at Ward's, when we sold Performa machines, for a long time, this is the keyboard that came with, especially the cheaper Performa machines, because this would have came out right about the same time, maybe in 1990, maybe 1991. This would have been the keyboard that shipped, or would have been an option for like the Macintosh LC, LC2, LC3, and then also like the Classic 2, and the Performa equivalents of those machines. So like Performa 200 for like the Macintosh Classic 2, and all of those like 405, 406, 407. It was so funny how Apple did that with the retailers, so that way you couldn't price match between Sears and different stores that sold those machines. All in all, it's an okay keyboard. I actually picked this up just to kind of complete my collection. I don't see myself typing on it when there's better options, but here we are. And finally, for my original Apple branded ADB keyboards, it's the one that seemingly a lot of people love to hate, the Apple design keyboard. This tried to get, and it is not a joy to type on. Just like membraney, kind of very dry kind of thing. This one might be a little clapped out. I've got a few of these. If you bought a higher end Performa machine, kind of contemporary to when this was new, this would have been the keyboard that you would have gotten, just because it made it look a little bit fancier. Unlike everything else that I've shown you so far, the design keyboard actually has the ADB cable built in, and then you had a little area down here where you could then plug in the mouse to the keyboard. And I guess that's okay. It addresses an issue with desk space, because on a lot of those keyboards, again, you got the cable coming out the side, and then you got the mouse coming out over here, and you know, I think that a lot of people kind of saw that and thought, it's maybe not a great use of space. And if you think about the people that were in charge of Apple at the time, they probably were very much kind of excited about trying to look more like a PC clone, so that way that they could maybe try to capture some of that market, be taken a little bit more seriously as a business machine. Even though if you went into any kind of desktop publishing, a newspaper, any kind of radio station or something like that, it was maybe affiliated with like a school, or like a higher education, you'd see Mac stuff in there. So I mean, people were using those in those type of situations already. But yeah, this keyboard is like not a real joy to type on. It's okay if you didn't have an extended keyboard too, and you absolutely needed an extended keyboard. It's an option. It's a keyboard. It's not a great one. So that pretty much takes you through all of my first-party Apple ADB devices. So let's talk about maybe some third-party keyboards, because, you know, Apple did have a clone program for a while in the 90s that got all kinds of players involved. You got Pioneer and Supermax and or is it Supermax? Is that what they called? It was like, but it's Pioneer and Radius, and man, it was like everybody and their uncle was Power Computing. Like all these people were making clone Macs, kind of based off, I guess, is it the Tarzana architecture? Is that what it's called? Because it, like if you think about the PowerPC 4400, I guess that was kind of maybe a baseline machine that Apple designed for the clone makers, and a lot of people just took that design and ran with it. Sure, you've got some people that kind of went off on their own, like I think if you saw like RMC's video recently about like a Pioneer and maybe like a UMac or Motorola or StarMax branded one. Yeah, I mean, there was some neat stuff out there. But anyway, let's talk about some of my keyboards for those. I have here, this is a Radius extended keyboard, and it very much, like the font on the keys and the feel, it very much feels kind of like a dumbed down version of the extended keyboard too. It's definitely a membrane in here. I can't remember exactly money is what made everybody cheap out on their keyboards. But It's kind of nice because if you do compare it to the extended keyboard, it does kind of mimic the same size. I would almost say that if it weren't for a few sort of embellishments on the design of the keyboard, that they basically just said, Apple, send us your specs, and we'll go ahead and we're going to make that exact copy of your keyboard. I will say that the extended keyboard 2 is very heavy, and the Radius keyboard is not so heavy. So how do you make it less heavy? Maybe you stop hiding metal plates inside your keyboard to trick people into thinking that it is rougher and tougher than what they really are. Something that Radius did on this one, though, is there's a lot of information that is I don't want to say embossed, because doesn't that mean if it's like it's going into the thing, or maybe it's coming out? But anyway, there are like the base commands that everybody's going to have, like undo, cut, copy, paste, and they also used a recessed power button, unlike the Apple ones, which had it sort of out. So I guess if you were maybe reaching across your desk, you could trigger like a shutdown situation. Not good if you're right in the middle of a project, because kind of in those days, the Mac could prompt you to save, but you had to kind of be on it. So I do like this one. It's okay. I picked it up on a trade. Actually, no, a friend of mine picked it up for me at an estate sale a while back. I'll show you another one that I picked up on a trade here in a minute. But I do really like this keyboard. I think it's okay. It's if you didn't have an extended keyboard and needed one, I would probably love this more than the extended keyboard or the Apple design keyboard. Now this one, Apple, where I showed you where they had the little bar that kind of would raise the keyboard up. Radius just went ahead and said, hey, feet work. And yeah, it's not as adjustable where you can kind of dial it in like you can with the Apple thing, but this does get it at a nice typing angle where probably if I had to do some serious work, that it wouldn't be too bad. And my final extended keyboard here, this is a power computing keyboard that would have shipped with one of the clone machines. So sort of like the Radius, everybody kind of like did a little bit of their own thing. This one's really grimy. I need to clean this up, but don't especially care for this keyboard. It's okay. To kind of differentiate itself, Power Computing kind of took some liberties with their machines, but there are some areas where things were done just a little bit cheaper because we're trying to undercut Apple here. We're not trying to make something just as nice as they did. The spacebar is oddly shaped compared to a lot of the other Macintosh machines. It has an ISO style return key. Again, the other style, where it's shaped like an L. Sort of, I guess, like Model M's and stuff kind of popularized that. The Power Computing keyboard does have an affixed ADB connection, or ADB cable, but it does have 2 ADB ports. So since you can daisy chain up to X amount of devices, this might be handy if you had a mouse and you had a tablet or something that you wanted to hook up. I don't know for 100%. I think as long as you don't go over like 500 milliamp or something like that on your total ADB loadout, double check that before you burn something out on your machine. I think as long as you don't go over 500 milliamp, that basically you could daisy chain a whole bunch of these things together, which was handy, especially with what we're going to talk about next. So over the years, Apple produced a number of mice, ADB mice, to complement their keyboards. The designs really didn't change very much until kind of late in the game. For a very, very long time, your only real option, unless you went third party, was the Apple Desktop Bus Mouse. And this is the one that would have shipped with like an Apple 2GS. This would have shipped with, because you remember kind of in those days, the 2GS I think just included the keyboard and mouse because it was kind of education. They're thinking one box, get it out the door. But like from Macintosh, so like a SE or a Mac 2 or a 2SI, any of that kind of era of machines, you would have gotten the mouse for free, but you had to buy a keyboard. So that was sort of a way for Apple to kind of artificially deflate the price, because there weren't a whole lot of people making ADB keyboards back in the day, or at least making good ones. The Apple ones at least use Alps caps, so you kind of had a consistent feel, like a real tactile mechanical keyboard. Not too bad. So you have the original Apple desktop bus mouse, and then many years later, Apple released, after some ergonomic concerns, released the Apple Desktop Bus Mouse 2. And if I had to choose between these two, I'm going to use this one, mostly because my hand is not square. I do like this mouse. There are a bajillion different revisions of this mouse as they came out over the years. This probably would have been the one that you would have gotten with some of your Performa machines or your late era. I'm pretty sure my Quadra machine maybe came with this. That may not be correct. But this, again, for sure, Performas would have came with this style of mouse. When you start moving into the clone manufacturers, it seems like everybody just called Mac Alley and was like, hey, buddy, can you make a keyboard? Or can you make a mouse for me? So this one definitely needs to be cleaned up. It's got a piece of tape stuck to it. But I'm pretty sure this is just a Mac Alley mouse that was rebadged to be for power computing. And it wasn't just power computing that got in on the game. Super Mac and some other people got in on this too. This one says does not click, and I haven't pulled that off of there because I actually bought these two mice when I went down to Computer Reset in Texas, and I just thought it was kind of neat. And I'm not going to really use this mouse, so at some point in the past, somebody thought enough to mark this where somebody didn't grab it, plug it in their Mac, and immediately have a problem. I do have one more of those power computing mice. Maybe it might be a good trade item or something one day. This one is really discolored, but they're both basically the same model number and all that type of stuff. Again, I mean, you can look at them side by side and tell that, you know, who made them. I do have some, I forgot to bring them home today, but I do have a couple of Kensington mice that are like mouse in a box that are ADB, and they're kind of neat because they're ADB and USB, but I've never really used them. I picked them up just to have a couple of extra mice, and then I hit the bumper load of, or the bumper crop of like first party mice. When I went to Computer Reset, I probably bought like 20 Apple Desktop Bus Mouse 2 just to have them, because at the time I was kind of keyboard and mouse poor, and that's kind of resolved itself in the last few months. But kind of another neat thing that I've just recently added to my collection is there's a company that used to make a lot of stuff, especially for DOS machines, super duper popular with people that did AutoCAD and all that. This is the ADB Little Mouse by Mouse Systems. And what's kind of neat about this mouse is it's a true optical mouse that this probably would have came out, like, you know, I remember seeing these for the Mac Plus, so easily 1990, that similar models to this would have been on the market. And you think, oh yeah, you know, an optical mouse for the Macintosh, that's pretty darn handy, especially ADB one, you know, must track amazing. Well, the problem is that you need a special mouse pad to use these. And for a long time, I did not have the mouse pad. But just today, in the mail, I was able to track down one of the mouse pads. And I got this from Herbert Johnson, who kind of has like a ton of, he must have just a warehouse of old stuff. And sometimes you got to kind of work with him, and it always helps if you know exactly what you want. Part numbers help, things like that. But he sent me this mouse pad in a 8-inch floppy sleeve to protect it. This is the worst one he had. And it says as much on here. It says "Dude Worst," and the reason why it says "Dude Worst" is because at some point in the past, I'm going to try not to reflect this like we're Jason and the Argonauts here. Some kid etched the word "dude" into it, and Herbert was kind of like, I don't know if you want that one, but I was like, you know what? I really don't care. I think it's kind of funny, so that it's defaced. But I went ahead and I tested it today, and sure enough, it is the exact one for this thing. These mouse pads, it's more than just like a mirror. It has a pattern on it, which, depending on the type of mouse systems, optical mouse you have, is kind of one of two things. Some of these have like a grid of red lines going one way and black lines going the other way, because they have two optical pickups, and one optical pickup looks for the red, one looks for the blue, so that way that when you move around as it encounters and sees stuff, it kind of tracks that in the mouse. Well, these later models, by the time we kind of got around to ADB stuff for Macintosh, these models, it's like a 300 DPI. So, I mean, these squares are like just baby tiny. And they're black because there's a single optical pickup on that mouse. But anyway, just got it today. I can't wait to really play around with it. So I'll eventually do that. And I did get to test it at work today a little bit because I've got I think this is made by Belkin, the Belkin iMate. This is, Belkin iMate. This is kind of a neat thing that allows you to use ADB devices on USB. So you can plug any of this stuff into a modern PC and use it. But this is the newest of my keyboard stuff. But it allows me to kind of test things and all that. And maybe one day I'll do a fun video where you use extended keyboard 2 and like an Apple desktop mouse as like a daily driver on a modern machine. That would be kind of fun. Okay, so we've kind of talked about some of these other things. I'm going to put my mouse pad away before it gets scratched. Another kind of fun thing that came out right around the time of you think about like the PowerBook 500 and all the original touchpad iPads, or I'm sorry, not iPads, but PowerBooks. Alps released the Alps Glide Point, and this one, it's been removed from the box. Obviously, I haven't removed it. The original owner did that. But kind of the neat thing with this is if you had an older mouse or an older PowerBook that still had like the trackball, you could plug this in ADB on your machine, all colored, specifically for PowerBook. You could plug this in your PowerBook so that way that you could, kind of like feel what it's like to live with like some of those newer machines, I guess. So I always thought this was kind of neat, and a boss of mine way back in the day had one of these and had the like a PowerBook like a 190 or something like that, like one of the later kind of the ones that had a trackpad, and he still had one of these because there was something you could do with the Alps software that you could kind of program and use gestures, and he was a big proponent of that at the time. He thought that was very cool, and I tend to agree. So anyway, I thought that was kind of a neat thing. And there are a whole world of ADB like game controllers that came out for various Macs over the years. I think one of the better ones, especially for a gamepad, is the Gravis gamepad, the ADB version, which is kind of cool because it allows you to have a pass-through. And there is so you just plug your keyboard, you plug that in the back of your Mac, especially if you only got one ADB port in the back of your Mac, plug your ADB keyboard into there, and then everything just kind of daisy chains off from there. Now, the thing about this is it just emulates straight key presses. So if you, any game that works on a Mac works with this joystick, or this gamepad. And it's good for righties and lefties. It has a switch here on the bottom that you can switch that will invert everything. So that was kind of forward thinking, especially for accessibility for people. Not everybody's right-handed, but I am not sinister-handed, or whatever the technical term is. So I really like this one. The only thing that I think that's kind of maybe a little weird, maybe I got to take it apart and clean it, is games like Wolves in the Woods or like Frankie's Dungeon, is that what it's called? There's a lot of times you have to jump at an angle, and it does not always register that you are jumping at an angle. Now keep in mind, this strictly emulates keyboard, and there is a control panel object and stuff with like, you know, pre-done templates for like dozens of games, if not hundreds of games. But this strictly does keyboard. It will not emulate. So if you have like Shuffle Puck, if you got it in your brain you want to do Shuffle Puck, it's probably going to require you doing some programming or some modifications on the device to do that. So anyway, that is kind of the keyboards, and it's kind of my mouse and some other ADB devices. And I want to show you one last thing that was kind of something that was exclusive to education, that I know a lot of people have kind of picked these up in the intervening years, but I've always thought this was kind of neat. And I maybe only saw one time way back in the day. And it's a keyboard again, but it's the Alpha Smart. And the Alpha Smart is kind of a neat device, because if you had a school or you had kind of a smaller organization that did not maybe have the money for a computer lab or something like that, or you had a lot of students that needed access to computers, but you did not have the money for like the big machines, you could basically give them this little word processor and have people with like a 4-line LED or LCD display. You could go through, you could have them do the bulk of their typing and stuff on this device, and it's not terrible. The spacing feels weird to me, just because my hands can cover up almost the whole thing. It's probably because your target market is probably grade schools, like K-12, K through 12. So maybe the spacing is a little tight for smaller hands. But the neat thing about it is you could go through, and with the built-in memory, and it just takes batteries, and there's a battery backup as well, you could go through and you could start up to 8 different files or 8 different documents on this. And what you would do is you would just go ahead and you'd hit like I think it's like the Alt, and you hit like file 1, you get like a readout up here that would say, you know, hey, you're going to start a new file. Do you want to overwrite or continue? Something to that effect. And then you could use the arrow keys to kind of spin around. My down arrow sticks on this one. I got to fix that. But you could go through, you can modify your document, do everything you were wanting to do. And I'm pretty sure I don't have batteries in this. Oh, good for me. I don't have batteries in it. But when you were done, oh yeah, look at that. It's etched on by a school. So yeah, definitely schools. But you would go through when you were done, and rather than have something where there'd be like removable media where you take it out of this and you put it in like a desktop PC or something like that, it's kind of an ingenious idea. If you had PCs, so this is a PS2 port, or you had Macintosh or Apple IIGS, and it says as much here on the top, Mac or 2GS or PC, and then power, that's the power connection. What you would do is you would use a special, basically like a PS2 cable or an ADB cable, and you would plug that into the keyboard input on your Macintosh. And I'm pretty sure that there was a little cable or something kind of along these lines, where if you had a Mac that only had one ADB port, where you could just like, aha, here's my, I now have 2. Haha, I've defeated you, Apple. That what you would do is you would plug that into the Mac, and then there's a button here that very clearly says send. And what you would do is, it's like you would have Word or MacWrite or whatever it is, or ClarisWorks open on the Mac, or Apple Write or whatever on your 2GS, or Word on your PC. And what you would do when everything was in readiness, you would hit send, and basically all it does is send all the keystrokes that you recorded into this machine over to the other machine. So it would basically retype at high speed everything that you had typed into the Alpha Smart, and that was an easy way to get it over to a desktop PC. It might require a little bit of massaging and stuff to kind of fix formatting, but then you could print it. And you could have an entire cabinet full of these machines. I can't remember the original retail price, but it was, again, a fraction of the price of an Apple IIGS or a fraction of the price of a Macintosh. IBM PCs, who knows, but who cares? You know, cheap clone machines are cheap clone machines. But this was kind of a neat device and definitely filled like a niche for schools and all that. So anyway, this is kind of my ADB device collection. I got a ton of junk here, and a lot of it needs to be kind of cleaned up. Some of it needs a little bit of spit and polish to kind of get it where I want it to be. But I just thought in the spirit of Marcintosh, maybe I would show it off to you guys. So anyway, that's really it for the moment. Thanks everybody for checking out the channel, and thanks everybody for making some really cool Marcintosh content. I've really enjoyed watching the community videos. Looking around, just making sure I haven't missed anything. No, I'm pretty sure that's it. Anyway, have a great night, and Apple II forever.